Hello everyone and welcome at this webinar about accounting, but also a little bit accounting firms, because we're going to see a live demonstration about Odoo 16, our latest version, mainly focused on all the different aspects of accounting, but also some great tools for accounting firms that want to use Odoo in order to manage the accounting of their customers on a daily basis. But before we start, my name is Winan Tastena and I'm at Odoo for about 5 years now. And at Odoo, I mainly focus on the rollout of Odoo for accounting firms. So basically 4 years ago, we started only in Belgium, but now we're also active in Luxembourg, in the Netherlands, and we're trying to expand the next year to France and Switzerland as well. So, like I already said, the most important part will of course be a live demonstration, but for the people that never heard about Odoo, we're going to start by a brief, and I promise it's a brief introduction, more commercially, a little bit about what Odoo stands for. So, what is Odoo? I always compare it with your smartphone. On your smartphone, you have different applications for, let's say, your private needs. For every need, you can download a different application. Well, basically, we have the same in Odoo. We have different applications, but then for different business needs. And the biggest advantage is that all those different applications are combined together, integrated together in one single tool, an all-in-one business solution software, which is Odoo. But the most important part is definitely the fact that all those different applications are integrated, but also that they're very easy to use. The user adoption, the user friendliness is very important for us in every new single feature that we will develop. Definitely some of the features that we try to develop for hours never landed in our standard version because they were not easy enough to understand. So it's really something that we're going to focus on before we launch a new version, before we launch new features in the version. So if we take a look, and of course this is a slide from our marketing, if we take a look on average, companies use approximately 14 different applications, different tools in order to run their business. So we call it a not integrated network, where you have your company and your customers, let's say the accounting firm and their customers, with between all of them a lot of different applications. So you can have, for example, between them a CRM, an online document management system in order to sign online, but also some Excel and an accounting software tool, etc. And they're all different applications that are not integrated together. So what is let's say, the most important part in that is that it's very expensive in order to create all the different integrations, but also to maintain them. Today, every single software comes up with a lot of new updates. So every time one of those different tools comes up with an upgrade, also the integrations need to be upgraded, tested, etc. So it's very time consuming, but also very expensive to maintain. So that's why in Odoo, like I mentioned, we have one single application for every need that can come from sales to services, also to website, e-commerce, all combined at the end in the accounting. And the biggest advantage is that we don't have to maintain those integrations because it's one single tool, one single solution. And every time that we come up with a new upgrade, well, we upgrade all the different applications together. So it's not necessary and less expensive in order to maintain, because we basically maintain all the different integrations in the same software. So how do that interact with accounting firms? For the moment, we have approximately more than 600 different accounting firms worldwide, of course, that use Odoo on a daily basis in order to manage the accounting of their customers. So like I mentioned in the beginning, 4 years ago, we really started a collaboration with them. And it's thanks to that collaboration that I will be able to present you the version that we're going to see now today in accounting, because a lot of new features landed in Odoo 16 thanks to the collaboration of those accounting firms. It was really great, let's say, for us to provide them with an accounting software, but on the other hand, we obtained a lot of feedback from them, and who can give us better feedback, let's say, than experts in the sector themselves. So that as a small introduction. The most important part, I hope at least, is gonna start now. We're gonna give a live demonstration about Odoo accounting for also accounting firms. So I basically split it in 5 different flows, and the first one will be all about pre-accounting. What we're gonna see here, first of all, is the specific dashboard that we developed for accounting firms in order to follow up on all the different tasks that they have on all their different customers. Because that's the tricky part with accounting firms. They have multiple customers to follow up, and that's why we created a specific dashboard for them. And on the other hand, we're gonna see our document application that will be used as an exchange portal between the accounting firm and their end customers, but it can also be used internally in a company, let's say, in order to share documents between all the different departments and users, of course. So let's dive into the live demonstration. When you log in on odoo.com as an accountant, you will see all the different customers' files that you as an accountant have access to. So basically all the different lines that you can see over here correspond to different databases. Every single customer has his own database. It's very important for us that they have their own database. First of all, for security reasons, of course, so that we are sure that we can never give access to another customer to his own file or to their accounting data because it's shared in the same database. No, they all have their own database. But also because we want the customer to use Odoo as his management system, it's important that they have their own database. But what is way more important over here is that you can see those different columns. All those different columns are basically activities that are synchronized in real time with all the different customers. So, for example, if I as an accountant log in the morning on my odoo.com dashboard, I can click on the inbox activity in order to filter all my customers by the number of documents that need to be handled in Odoo. So in this case, for example, I prefer to start with my customer DHL instead of my customer Coca-Cola because DHL has 10 documents to be processed, Coca-Cola less. And when I click again on there, I can come back to my original screen. What I also see on the left side is that we work with templates. We have a template for associations and we have a template for companies. Why do we use them? Because Odoo accounting is available in more than 176 countries, I believe. Every single country has its own localization. As an accounting firm, you manage multiple customers. You don't want to change the localization every time over and over again. And when I talk about localization, it's most of the time the chart of account, the naming of your tax codes, but also the setup of the document application that we will see right after. You don't want to do it all over again. So basically, when we start working with an accounting firm, we define together a template with your chart of account, with your naming of taxes, and every time that you have a new customer, you can basically duplicate the template in order to start out of the box with your configuration for every single new customer. What we can also see over there is that we can tag our customers. So for example, if I want to see all my customers from the Antwerp office, I can search for a tag and I can filter immediately all my customers for Antwerp. And I can combine it with the columns over here and immediately filter on the ones which have the most documents for Antwerp, for example. And when I come back to the original screen, I can see all of them again. And last but not least, before we go further, I can also select multiple. It's maybe difficult to see on the screen here, but I can select multiple customers. And as from the moment I select multiple customers, I have the action button over here, and I can perform actions in bulk. Because every single customer has a single database, it's very easy to invite users to all different databases. So for example, if you have a new employee starting at the accounting firm, instead of creating one user in every single database, from here on, you can immediately invite him and he has access to all the different databases. The same the day they leave, because everything is cloud-based, for security reasons, of course. If an employee leaves, you don't want him to have access anymore, so you can easily remove them as well. So that's it about the dashboard. Let's dive into our first Odoo database. You can connect from here at the right side. You can connect in multiple tabs, different customers. And if you dive into one, you will arrive at the home screen of Odoo, where you will see all the different applications that are installed. In this case, we have the typical applications installed that are used in an accounting firm. But of course, if you want to add multiple, you can click on the apps button in order to install all the other applications that we've seen before. We're going to start with the document application. If I open the document application, you can see at the left side we have different workspaces, and every single workspace has its own tags. Tags will be used, let's say, as quick filters, so that you can easily search for documents that has the tag. We're going to see it a little bit later on. Of course, it's an ERP, so you have the possibility to define all different workspaces and tags as you want. This is basically a typical setup that we do for an accounting firm, with a workspace for all the accounting documents, a working file with all the proof of deposit, for example, and a permanent file with contracts, etc., etc. We're going to dive into each one of them. We're going to start with the accounting documents and see how we can exchange documents on the Odoo platform between the end customer and the accountant. So basically, you can easily click on the upload button. If you have all the documents locally stored, you can select them over here and upload them on the database. Also, if you have them, you can drag and drop them in there. And as from that moment, you can get rid of them locally, because we immediately uploaded them on our cloud database so that they're available everywhere. You don't need to keep the documents locally anymore. But what is way more important is to create shared links. So for example, if I select the workspace, accounting, and I combine it with a tag, new for example, I can click on the share button. When I click on the share button, we will immediately create a shared URL. I'm going to use it right after. First of all, I want to show you all the other possibilities that you have. You can click on the download and upload in order to make sure that with this shared link, people can also upload documents. So as from that moment, you have the possibility to activate the email alias. So you can create out of the box. We call it an alias. Basically what we mean with that is that you can create as many aliases as you want, which is basically everything that you put in front of that. Behind the @ is the, let's say, the domain name, and it will always be the URL, the website of the customer database that you cannot change. So what does it mean? As from the moment that you send now an email to purchase at demo18april.odoo.com, all the documents will arrive in the accounting workspace with the tag new. But I can also go one step further and create a new activity on these documents as well, and select an activity type. For example, let's select the activity type inbox, because remember what I said right before. In the dashboard of the accounting firms, the different columns we had were these activity types. So that's a trigger of making sure that those documents become available on the dashboard. Just link it to an activity and it will be visible on the dashboard. So I'm going to copy the URL. I'm not going to use the email alias because it takes like about 5 minutes or whatever in order for the email to arrive. We don't want to wait for that. So I'm going to use this URL, which is basically exactly the same. The only advantage is not only that we have to wait for the mail, but also if you have, for example, a huge pile of paper documents, you put them in the scanner, you want to send them to the email alias. Sometimes the size might be too big. You don't have that issue with the URL. So again, I'm copying this and I activate the shared link. So when I go to another tab, you can see that this URL that we created, we can use it now out of the box. You can see the different documents linked to it. And if I have now documents, of course, I have documents for the webinar over here. So let's take the pile of bills that I have for Belgium, because I'm working now on a Belgium localization. When I upload the PDF over here, well, let's see what happens in Odoo itself. So basically this URL you can share with whoever you want, with your colleagues, with your customer, maybe even with suppliers of the customer, and they can upload all their documents immediately over here without having access to the database. See it a little bit as a Dropbox, let's say. But if I refresh my page now, I can see that those documents arrived over here immediately in our database. Let's go back to full screen. And we can see that they arrived exactly where we want, in the workspace accounting with the tag new. You can see it over here. So let's open the PDF file. We can see we have different bills over here. So the first thing we want to do is to split them. So click over here in order to open the new screen, the split screen. And from here on, I can split my documents. So for example, this one is a 2-page bill. I can click over here in order to make it a multi-page one. And this one are conditions that I don't want to take into the database. I can just deselect them in order to get rid of them. And once we're done with the selection, you can see all the different action buttons over here that I prepared again for, let's say, a typical accounting firm setup, but you can create as many actions button as you want. But I want to send these to accounting and create vendor bills of them. So let's click on the create bill button, and you can see that now 4 bills are being digitalized. We're gonna see right after how that goes. But the terms and conditions I want to get rid of, so just click over here, and now they disappeared. So first of all, what can we see? We can see that the tags changed over here. You can see it over here. It's not new anymore, it's purchased. So if we click now, let's say on processed, I will only filter on the ones that are processed. And if I want to see only the new bills, I can easily click over here in order to see the new bills. Because these have been sent to accounting, we create vendor bills of them. By the way, if you want to keep track of it in the accounting application, because behind the scenes, we send them from the document application to the accounting application. If you want to see what document is linked to what accounting entry, you have it over here. So just click up the link over here, and from the document application, we jumped in accounting. That's the integration between the applications I talked about before. Well, you will immediately see that it has been created from the document application. And for the moment, this is scanned by our OCR. We're going to see it in the second part, how our artificial intelligence will make sure that we don't have to fill all the input fields manually. But first things first. Let's go back to the document application, because we have other documents that already were in the database with the tag new. So also these, I'm going to select the multiple, and you will see all the same action buttons that we had before. You have them over here. So also these, I'm going to create bills of them. So we have 4 additional bills that are now being digitalized. When I come back, you can see now I have nothing left in new because they're all processed. So that's about the accounting workspace. Let's take a look at the working file, for example. Here I have the filing of, for example, of course, the annual accounts, the corporate income tax return in Belgium, a customer listing. So you can see the tags are differently. I can click, for example, on annual accounts and filter on the proof of deposit, in this case from 2017 till 2020. And I can see here, I have what we call a placeholder for the next year, 2021. And I can see over here that it's already late. If I click over here, it's overdue. It's already 292 days overdue. And this is basically the link with the dashboard that we've seen before as well. So thanks to the fact that the activity is due over here, it will be visible on the dashboard, on the portal for accounting firms. So what do I have to do? As from the moment that I've deposited them, I can click on the placeholder, I can take the document. Of course, again, I have proof of deposit here, for example. If we take a document for the annual accounts, for example, PDF file. If I replace the placeholder by the PDF file, I will see that the activity has been processed. It's done now. It's automatically validated. And on the other hand, I created a new placeholder in X days later. For example, the annual accounts are due every year. So basically, we create a new activity on the due date of the deposit so that the next year it will become visible on the dashboard again when I need to be warned of it. Okay, so that's how the placeholders can work, and also how an accounting firm can keep track, let's say, of all the different due dates. Last but not least, we have our permanent file, other type of tags again. So, for example, we have contracts here, driver licenses, whatever. I also have ID cards that I want to keep track over here because an accounting firm needs to keep track of ID cards of his customers. Well, for example, I don't have it here yet. So what I wanted to show here is that immediately from the document application, you can request documents to your customer as well. So just click on the request button and I can say, I need the ID card of my customer Antoine, for example. Well, when I give it a name, I can request it to someone. You will basically see here all the users of the database, which are basically the employees of the accounting firm, perhaps, and their customer. Because what is very important in the collaboration between the accounting firm and the customer, I'm going to repeat it several times today, is the fact that they work together, hand in hand, on the same platform. They work together in Odoo. And that's basically completely different than the way accounting firms might work before. Working on, let's say, their traditional accounting tool without having access from the customer. Here, it's basically the the accounting firm, the accountant that will connect to the management software of their customer. So it's very important that in the setup that we propose with Odoo, there is a possibility of both working hand in hand. And we're going to see some great advantages of that fact. So I can invite my customer in the same database and I can request it to him. So my customer Antoine, I can select him. I have the tags in the workspace that are pre-filled and I can type him a note. Hey, Antoine, can you please provide me with your ID card? And basically when I make the request, I create that placeholder that we've seen before. And if I click on it, we're gonna dive into this part later, but I can see what we call the chatter, which will basically keep track of everything that happens on that document. In this case, I send an email to Antoine. Antoine will receive the notification and he has two possibilities. He can reply to the mail with a copy of his ID card, and by replying to the mail, we will automatically replace the placeholder in Odoo by his ID card. It will immediately be stored at the right place. But on the other hand, he also receives a link in there. If he clicks on the link, he will arrive immediately at the right place in Odoo and change the placeholder like I showed before himself. But that's a first way of collaborating, let's say, between both, because both have access to the same environment. And Antoine can basically upload his ID card. Instead of sending it by mail to me and I have to download it and upload it in database, no, he can just reply to the mail and it will be right on the right place in Odoo itself. So that was it for the first part. Let's have a small recap of what we saw. First of all, we saw the specific dashboard for accounting firms, which is really focused on task management. The most important part in there is to be able to follow up on different activities in real time on all of their customers, thanks to the different activities that you can see in the different columns, which will only appear when they are due, so that they can basically make sure that they concentrate on everything where they need to concentrate. From the dashboard itself, you can connect as an accountant on one or multiple customers working in every single tab on a single customer. And you can, of course, apply actions in batch because differently than a traditional accounting software, maybe, it's not a single database where we work on all the customers. No, every single customer has his own database. In order to make sure that we can easily, let's say, invite a new employee or put tags on them, we can apply these actions in batch, as we've seen before. We work with templates. As mentioned, we don't want you, for every single customer, to adapt your chart of account, the naming of your taxes, etc. We work together on a template so that basically we do the job once, and from there on you can easily duplicate so that we only do it once and all your different files are streamlined. And last but not least, thanks to the labels, the activities, etc., you can obtain exactly the information you want to see on the screen. You can filter, for example, all the customer you're responsible on, and you can easily filter on the activities to see what is due for your customers. And on the other hand, we saw our document application. Document application that in the situation of the accounting firm and the customer is used as an exchange platform, but it's also heavily used internally in a company. Let's say that at Odoo, for example, we don't have any paper here anymore. There is a third-party provider that receives all our paper mail. On a daily basis, they basically scan it and they send it to the email address as I showed it before. And it's our office manager that receives all of it and can easily divide them and send them to the right people. Because something that I not mentioned before is that you have access rights on the workspaces, etc. So that if you want, only the users can see the documents that are assigned to them. So internally, if you don't want everybody to see all the documents, there are some access rights as well. So it's very easy to set up. But in the combination of the accounting firm, which is great over here, is that, like I've shown already a little bit, it's completely integrated. And there is not two different tools. No, it's all working on Odoo itself. So it's very easy to upload and exchange documents because, again, I warned you, I'm going to repeat it several times, the customer and the accountant work hand in hand on the same platform. So it's very easy to collaborate, to communicate, and to exchange documents. It's an ERP, so of course, the setup that I've shown you is a setup that we practice for a typical accounting firm, but of course you can create all the different workspaces and tags as you want. And something that I have not shown before is that when we send the documents to the OCR, we will also index the content, which is very useful for the end customer. Because if, for example, in a few years, they're wondering, where did I bought my iPhone? Because it's broken, I need the bill for the guarantee, for example. Well, they don't remember anymore where they bought it. Well, by making sure that the content of all our different documents is indexed, they can easily search for iPhone, for example, in the document application, and they will see all the different documents that contain iPhone, which is very useful for them to find documents based upon the content. Another example might be a contract. You don't know anymore in what contract is for your specific building, for example. Well, you can type the address, the name of the building, and we're going to search into the content in order to find the right contract. Very easy to use. Anyway, that's it for the first part. Let's dive into the second flow, which is, of course, the next part of what we've seen right before. We've sent some bills from the document application to accounting. Let's dive now into the accounting application and see how the OCR, how our algorithm, the artificial intelligence, will help us in order to reduce the manual input work. So let's go back to our database and go back to the dashboard and open our accounting application. So as from here on, you can see different blocks. Every single block corresponds to a specific journal. We're going to focus first on the vendor bills journal, and we can see here 8 bills to validate. If we click on there, we can see these are the 8 bills that I sent right before from the document application. And let's have a look at all of them, because as you can see over here, basically everything is already pre-filled. Let's open the first one. We can see that we've sent this one 4 minutes ago. The OCR has refreshed it. So basically, what is our OCR capable of catching? First of all, the supplier. You can see that it's linked to Coolblue. Well, how did he find it? Basically, based upon the name, the address, the URL, but also the mail address. If the contact already exists in the database, Odoo will link it to the right contact. And if it doesn't exist, we're going to connect to the VIS platform. Based upon the VAT number, we're going to create the contact for you. We also find the bill reference, for example. And if we click on the bill reference, you can see on the image itself where the OCR has found the right information. If he is wrong, because of course it's sometimes possible that he is wrong, more about that right after. If he's wrong, it's very easy to click on another field, for example over here, and we will take over the field by just clicking on it. And if you were wrong, and the OCR was right, you can just click over here in order to reload the original data. But also the bill date, the due date is completely taken over by the OCR. But also the bank account. If the bank account, the IBAN and the BIC is visible on the image itself, we're going to link it immediately to the contact form, which is very useful, we're going to see later, for bank reconciliation. But also, as Odoo is more than a typical accounting tool, we're going to use it for outgoing payments, more in the upcoming flows. So that's it. Let's concentrate on the invoice lines, because we can see that also here there is a specific account. I'm working on a Belgium chart of account. The 23 laptop account is an investment account. So basically it's not only expense accounts, of course, it can also be balance sheet in investment account. We have the right amount without taxes, and we have a tax code here for investment goods. All of these has been taken over by the OCR. Well, actually not completely by the OCR, because the account itself, the naming of the tax code, it can be services, goods, investment goods, all of them are at 21%. So the OCR will not be able to capture it. How does that work? Well, it works based upon our artificial intelligence. Also there, I think it's completely different than in other accounting tools. We don't work with a pre-setup per supplier. No, basically we work based upon historical data. Based upon the combination of the label and the supplier, Odoo will propose the right account and the right tax code. So in practice, what does it mean? The first time that you process a bill for a supplier, you will need to fill in the account, because we fill in a pre-setup of a predefined expense account perhaps, but it will not be the right one. So basically the first time you need to adapt as well the account as the tax code. By validating, the artificial intelligence will take place. So the next time that you process the bill, based upon the combination of the supplier and the label, we will always provide you with the right account, with the right tax code. Imagine this tomorrow. when we are in an invoicing environment where the label and the supplier is of course part of the UBL, the XML or whatever that we're gonna import in Odoo, we will always be 100% correct, so without any manual intervention anymore. But even today already, with the artificial intelligence working thanks to the OCR, it's incredible how much time you will spare and how much or how less you need to correct actually. If you want to see the impact in accounting, by the way, you can click here on the journal items, because thanks to the invoice lines and the tax code used, you can see the impact on accounting. And also here you can see the different tax grids coming from the tax code, which is basically the only link with the VAT report. I always used the mouse here for the moment. If you don't like to work with mouse and you prefer keyboard shortcuts, well, everywhere in Odoo you can simply click on Alt. And by clicking Alt, you will see all the different shortcuts available in Odoo. So in this case, I want to go to the next invoice, so I'm going to type Alt-N in order to switch to the next one. Next one is a great example. I'm not going to repeat myself every time over and over. You can imagine that all the necessary information, like I mentioned right before, will be pre-filled by the OCR. But what is specific over here is that we can, of course, capture duplicates. You will see it over here. If Odoo thinks it's a duplicate, you can easily click on there and see the duplicate that he found. So, for example, I can see here, indeed, there is a bill which is already posted with the same date, the same supplier, the same reference, same amount. Let's have a look at it. You can click over there and jump into that specific bill. I can see that, yeah, I posted this one 6 months ago. So the reference is the same, the amount is the same, supplier is the same. It seems indeed like a duplicate. The check of the duplicate is done based upon the combination of the supplier, the total amount, the date, as well as the reference. If all those are the same, we expect it's a duplicate. So immediately from here, you can easily click on the action button and delete it because it's of course already handled before. The next one is security. Everything is filled in. Other expense account, other tax code, thanks to the artificial intelligence. What is special here, it's an invoice on 2 different accounting years. It's services, I'm not sure if it's visible for everybody, but it's services from August 2022 to August 2023. We're gonna see how we can easily manage the cutoff of it in a few seconds. Okay, next, it's a bill for publicity for Centercom. What is special here, it's we're in a Belgium company over here. Because the supplier is in Netherlands, Odoo captured it immediately, and we can see over here, no tax applied. The right tax code is applied based upon the country. We're gonna make sure that if it's a B2B situation, no tax should be applied, and of course, the right amounts will be in the right tax codes. Okay, next again, Delvaux, very interesting case. It's for the purchase of a vehicle. Now, what is special over here is that we also have a fleet application. Well, what if we combine both? Very great, because if we combine both, you have the possibility to add a vehicle column in your bills, which will basically give you an overview of all the different vehicles that are available in the database. And we're going to link the purchase to a specific vehicle. We're going to see later on what kind of advantages that gives. But remember, you can link your vehicles to different vehicle expenses from the bills, because again, both applications are completely integrated. And for the rest, of course, everything is filled in. In this case, also another tax code, because in Belgium, of course, part of the VAT is not applicable, not deductible, let's say, and that we can cover in the tax code. Another one for public route. I put it in there because these are expenses that we always spread over a specific amount of time. So actually, these are deferred expenses. You can see that Odoo remembered that from last time. So we put it here on the balance sheet account. We're gonna see how we manage the deferred expenses in a second as well. We have common space, also deferred expenses, and I put it there in Portugal, also to show that based upon, again, the country, we put the right tax code. And last but not least, I put the one of bpost in there in order to show you that the algorithm is also capable to split 2 different VAT regimes. And there is a part at 21% here and a part at 0% VAT. So basically, the algorithm has perfectly split them into 2 lines. If it's more than 2 VAT regimes, the algorithm is not capable to split it anymore because it becomes too complex, but we can cover that with a template. I will explain later how that works. But let's take one step back now and go back to the original screen, because you see that I didn't change anything over here except of linking the correct vehicle. Basically, the OCR has pre-filled in everything. So at this point, everything that we did till now, the accountant can let his customer handle all of that. He can easily drop all his bills, split them, send them to accounting, send them to the OCR, and the accountant can only verify at a certain moment if everything has been correct. And from here on, select all of them together and basically post all the entries as once. Because you can see it over here, they're currently in draft, which means they have no impact on the general ledger yet. But by posting them, I will basically post all of them at once, post them to the general ledger. You see we don't have any bills anymore. Let's go back to the dashboard, because we can see that we don't have any draft entries now. They switched to bills to pay. If we click over here, I can see all the bills again. They received sequence number now. The status has been changed to posted. And I wanted to take the special cases out of there that I mentioned before. First of all, let's take the bill from Coolblue. Because we posted this bill on an investment account, it was a laptop, Odoo automatically created an asset. If we click on the asset, we can see that all relevant information has taken over from the bill, like the original value, acquisition date, etc., etc. But also the depreciation method and the accounts to be used are completely pre-filled because we linked an asset model to the investment account, which basically means that if we take a look at the depreciation board, we also created all the depreciations, in this case on a manual basis, and all the ones that are in the past, we already processed, we already booked them. And you can see that some of them already have a sequence number, some of them not. How does that work? If we click over there, well, just by creating the asset, we immediately calculate all the depreciations. All the ones in the past, we post them already. All the ones that are upcoming are in draft, ready to be completely automatically posted. We can see that he posted everything till the 31st of March, but because we are in April now, he didn't post the one for April yet. You can see it over here. If we will be in real time 30th of April, also this accounting entry will be completely posted. That brings me to the asset report. If we take a look at the depreciation schedule, you will see that of course we have a depreciation schedule in Odoo. We regroup all our different assets by account. And this is only one example of a first accounting report in Odoo. I'm not going to repeat it every time, but every single report we can export it in PDF and in Excel. But again, in the relationship from an accounting firm and a customer, we can also save it, for example. So if I need to create, let's say, an intermediate situation for my customer, but I don't want him to have access to accounting itself, only to the document application that we've seen before, I can easily click on the Save button over here, export it to, for example, PDF, select a folder where I want to save it, and export it. And from here on, you will see that from accounting, I can process it, let's say, in the document application on the other hand, so that it's saved over here in PDF, and it's available for my customer to be downloaded or to be seen. So every single report, I can save it in the document application as well. I can also easily change the date over here. So let's, for example, change it to last financial year, and I can see the book value at this date. Now, another great example of creating all the depreciations and having them in draft already is that I can easily simulate, because I can include all those unposted entries as well in order to simulate what will be the book value perhaps at the end of a specific year. Not only the ongoing year, but also a custom year. For example, if I want to see what will be the book value of all my assets, for example, at the end of 2024, I can easily change the dates and apply it. And because I included all the draft entries, I can easily simulate what will be the book value at a specific date. Very easy for intermediate reporting. Let's go back to the dashboard, because I had the one for Coolblue. Another great example is the one for security. I told you before, it's an expense on 2 different accounting years. I want to create a provision for it. Well, in my journal items, for every expense account in Belgium, a 61 account is an expense account. For every expense and revenue account, I have the possibility to create cutoffs immediately from here. So just click on there, and this screen will pop up. So basically from here I can say at what date do I want to recognize the expense instead of the date of the bill. Well, I want to recognize it, let's say, end of 2022, because we are managing the year end of 2022, and part of this bill is for 2022. So I can select 31st of December and select the accrued account. Odoo will propose one. You can change it. For example, in Belgium, it's 444 invoices to be received. It's a balance sheet account on the balance sheet. And on the other hand, I can change the percentage or the amount. If I only want to provision 50% or whatever, I can change it easily over here, and I will see the impact immediately in the accounting entries. And I can select the journal I want to post the miscellaneous entry in. I'm going to leave it with the MISC operation. And you can see that we're going to create two miscellaneous entries. One for the provision, another one for the reverse. So in a single click, I'm going to create the provision, as you can see over here, on the 31st of December, and I also immediately reversed it on the date of the bill, so that there is no other impact on the date of the provision instead of the bill. And from here, I keep track of to what bill it's linked, because if I click over here in the chatter, I jump back to the bill that I basically created the cutoff for. And also here, in the chatter of the bill, I can see both the miscellaneous adjustments at their specific date. So that said, I have one last example, and I believe Common Space was the one that I wanted to show, in order to show you how our deferred expenses work. It's a little bit similar as with the assets, but because I posted the bill on a deferred expense account, which is again a balance sheet account, I can define the fact that he needs to create a deferred expense. You can see it over here. And when I click over there, I can see that here not all the information is taking over, but part of it. The amount is taking over, etc., but not the accounts and the periodicity, because from the single account, I can maybe, let's say, reverse it in different kind of periods, different accounts used depending on the origin of the expense. So therefore, we can create models that you can easily select. So, for example, I have deferred expenses for my customer, for publicity, for marketing, for electricity, all in different periods. But let's say here it's publicity. For 12 months, I get a bill for 12 months. I just select my model that I created up front, and everything is heritated from the model. So I will create a monthly reversal, 12 monthly reversals on these accounts that are linked to the model. And when I compute the expense, I can see what will be the impact. So I can see that we're going to create 12 reversals spread over 12 months. If I'm okay with that, I can simply confirm, and in a single click, I created 12 miscellaneous entries. Every month, I have spread a 12th of all the amount every month, so that my P&L is perfectly aligned during the year. And that's what I wanted to show you for purchase. So let's go back, because we definitely, I hope at least, saw some very interesting stuff over here. And the most important part for me is definitely, today at least, the OCR combined with the artificial intelligence. We have a 98% success rate of our OCR, and therefore we use, first of all, Google Vision in order to transform the PDF and the image into text, because this is something that we don't do internally. It works very well, so we use the Google API for that. But it's our, let's say, artificial intelligence that will make sure that the text found by Google will be mapped in the right fields in Odoo itself. And that's not something that we outsource, because we have a dedicated team on there that is working continuously in making that algorithm better every time over and over again, that makes us obtaining that huge amount of success rate. So what about those 2%? Well, basically, let's imagine that the first time we scan a vendor bill for a supplier, and we didn't find the right vendor reference. Like I've shown before, you can just select it, and by selecting it, actually by changing it manually, on the moment that you will validate the bill, there will be a learning mechanism that will learn from it, and it will tell to the OCR that he took for that supplier the wrong invoice reference, and basically you will immediately find the reference that you changed and update the algorithm. What is great about that is that everybody works on the same algorithm. So basically, if you define it once, everybody can benefit from it. But of course, for some cases, the algorithm will not be powerful enough, because it's important to understand as well, it's purely an algorithm. There is no manual intervention in there. So of course it can happen that sometimes the algorithm is not strong enough. In those cases, for example, if you have multiple VAT rates, we believe it's the exception, but at least it can happen. And in that case, it will trigger a template, a ticket actually, for our developers. They will be notified about the fact that the algorithm is not strong enough for that supplier, and they will create a template for the supplier itself. So that basically the template will take it over from the algorithm for, again, having the same result, making sure that you don't have to change anything. But it will basically not be the algorithm that will search based upon the words around the reference, but we will define here is the reference for this supplier. And both combined with the artificial intelligence, will make sure that we have the best recognition rate on the market, but also for the input of the accounts and the tax codes, which are impossible to be captured in the bill itself. The artificial intelligence behind is definitely very, very fast, and will learn from your best practices by changing it once. And again, if you define that way of working in the near future, at least I hope, when we will exchange electronic invoices through different kind of platforms like PayPal or whatever, we will have a completely 100% accurate booking, because the label and the supplier will be defined in the UBL, in the XML, which will make sure that we will apply the right account, the right tax code every time, over and over again, which will be a complete other perception, let's say, of managing the accounting. And last but not least, at least I hope you agree with that, we have a fast and user-friendly interface. We will have at the right side always the image, at the left side the input screen, and we're going to see later that the image will come back every time, over and over again in Odoo, because it's of course crucial in order to verify. But more important, the recognition is instant. You've seen it together with me, just between one flow to another. The OCR has already captured all the different information, so it's very fast. You nearly have the time to grab a coffee and come back to your computer, and every information is already pre-filled. So it's very, very fast, instant recognition. You don't have to wait for hours or the next day sometimes, because the algorithm is purely intern, so it's very fast by exchanging to the server. We don't use a third party for that. We can work in batch, so as you've seen, we can send it to accounting by the customer or by someone else, and we can validate in batch in order to not do it one by one. So it's very easy to work on different parts in batches. But what is way more important is the automation. At least I hope you've seen it already over here. I showed 3 examples. Because it's very important, of course, for us in accounting to make sure that everything that can be automated, that we automate it. Take the example of the asset. I believe it's the best one. Just by validating the bill, we create the asset. We create all the depreciations. We already post the depreciations that can be posted, and we already prepare all the depreciation in draft so that we can simulate for the future just in one single click. Just by validating the bill, you don't have to take care of the depreciations anymore. But also for different expenses, in one single click, we split it, all the expense, in 12 different monthly accruals by reversing them in a completely automated way. And also cutoffs between different accounting years. You don't have to wait till the end of the year, scrolling through your general ledger and taking notes of what you need to accrue. No, you can do it immediately on the bill itself, create your accrual, and we will reverse it on the date of the bill. So there is no other impact than in the P&L than the date of the provision itself. So that's it. Let's go to our third flow, which is focused on sales. What I wanted to point out here is more, what's the advantage for the customer of your customer? It becomes a little bit complicated, but if you're an accounting firm and you manage the accounting of your customers on Odoo, what's in there for them? So what I wanted to point out here is that Odoo is more than an accounting tool. It's like we've seen, it's a all-in-one solution. So there are definitely some benefits for the customer as well. So let's go back to our database. Now we're gonna concentrate on the customer invoices. We're gonna see different ways in order to create them, but we're gonna start with the most manual one. So let's imagine that your customer uses Odoo as his management system, and he uses it for to invoice his customer, for example. So let's create invoice in order to create a new invoice. First of all, we need to fill in the customer. Let's fill in our favorite customer and look for InBev. Just by typing the name or the VAT number, Odoo immediately search on 2 different platforms. Definitely the VIS platform. The other platform I always forget, so please apologize. I can come back to you later if necessary, but we use another platform as well, so that we can search for the name and the VAT number. And just by clicking on there, I created the contact form in a single click. So no need to create it manually anymore. And we take over all the information that is relevant to the contact. And so because it's more than only an accounting tool, we have some additional options over here. So let's have a look at the sales and purchase, for example, because we can add some payment terms, perhaps. If I want to add the payment term with a financial discount, 2% financial discount if he pays within 10 days, I can link it over here. But also in the accounting tab, I can link his bank account if I want to create a SEPA domiciliation, for example. But I can also apply a credit limit, perhaps. So if I activate the credit limit, million is maybe a little bit too much. Let's change it to 1,000, for example. I can change it over here and have a specific partner limit for a customer, and save and close. Before I save, the language is very important. Based upon the language of the customer, all the, let's say, the documents that come out for that customer, like a sale order perhaps, or in this case, the invoice and the mail that we're going to create will be in the language of the customer. And of course, we manage all the different languages in the world. If we save and close, our customer is set. Now we can create the body of our invoices and add some different lines. For the lines, I created 2 different products. I created a product accounting services, and I created a second product, reinvoiced expenses. Now, it might seem stupid, but why using products? Let's say if we use Odoo as a management system, of course, products are very important for inventory tracking. But also in a combination of accountant and his customer, it's very interesting to create products with your customer because they're not an accountant. But because the invoice will create accounting entries, you want to make sure that those accounting entries are correct. So basically, you as an accountant, you can advise them creating the product because to the product, you can link different accounts. As you can see over here, different accounts, and already set the right tax code. So that basically your customer does not keep track of it. He's not interested in selecting the right account. He can just select the product, and because he selects the right product, well, the accounting entries behind will be completely correct as well. But let's go back to the customer. He can also pimp a little bit his invoices. So we can add a section over here, for example, a section for services, and add another section for expenses, for example. Expenses. And these sections I can just drag and drop over here and the expenses over here. So we're going to see later in the invoice, it's going to create some subtotals in order to make the invoice more readable. And if they want, they can also add a note for expenses for March 2023. And when I'm done, I can just confirm the invoice. No, I cannot confirm the invoice because if I need to distribute some of them analytically, we will have this warning. So let's have a look at the analytic first. So you can see if you click over there, we can see the different accounting plans, the different, call it however you want, analytic plans, analytic distribution, analytic, name it, dimension. This is what I mean with it. We have 3 dimensions over here, the type, the entity, and the department. The ones that are yellow are mandatory. So in this case, because it's a sales invoice, I made them mandatory. The ones that don't have a yellow dot are not mandatory, they are optional, so you can fill them in, but Odoo will not block you. But these ones are mandatory, so we're going to fill them in. They become green if they're 100% distributed. And let's say the type is accounting, and the entity is for the Brussels entity. And also the reinvoiced expenses, it's for accounting. But here, for example, for the entity, I want to have a distribution. So let's say 30% for Antwerp and the remaining 70% for the Brussels office, for example. Of course, you don't want to do that every time over and over again. So from the invoice itself, you can save it as an analytic default plan. And let's say that for InBev, I want to apply always the same analytic distribution. You have other possibilities. You can combine them together as different conditions together. So you can combine the customer with the product or with the product category, or add a prefix of accounting, so only for accounts starting with 700, for example. Whatever, I'll let you imagine all the possibilities. I'm going to leave it to just the customer, and we're going to save and close. Another example is in the invoicing for your customers. In the other info tab, we can set a recurrence, a monthly, quarterly, or yearly invoice. Let's imagine that I want to send this invoice, the same invoice, every time over and over again, every month to IMF. I can just select the monthly recurring over here. And I can see now that the monthly auto posting is enabled. So when I'm done, I can confirm this bill goes to the posted status. And before we go further, I just wanted to show you, if we go now to the dashboard, we can see there is one invoice to validate. If I click on there, we see that we have a draft invoice over there in 1 month for InBev that we automatically created. So this time we immediately created the second invoice to InBev, and we're going to post it automatically at the end of the month and then create the next one, etc., etc. But we're going to focus first on our invoice that we created because we only created the invoice. Now we're going to send it. Your customers can use Odoo. It's a complete invoicing tool, of course. So from here, they can also send and print it to their end customer. So if they click on there, the first time, of course, I just created InBev out of the box with you, so there is no mail address. I will add mine. Don't remember it, please. But you can save and close that it's saved on the contact form. And from here on, you will see that the mail template will immediately be in the language of the customer. We defined French before, so the mail is in French, and the invoice is added in PDF is also in French. And you can see over here, if there is an electronic format available in your country, in Belgium it's currently the EFFF format, you can define that you send the electronic format as well. We have different formats, most used over here, FFF Factor X for France and Germany, but also UBL 2.0, I believe, for the Netherlands. We have Italy, and basically, I believe nearly all European formats. But anyway, the most important format, I believe, today is the PEPL format. We also cover the PEPL BIS3 format that you can use to upload on the PEPL platform. So basically, you define what type of electronic invoice you want to send to the customer. So if you click on the send and print from Odoo, we send it by mail to the customer, and we keep track of that in the chatter. We will discuss that part later. First, focus on the invoice. It's created, similar as with the vendor bills. We add it at the right side. You can see it over here. The sections, we'll make some subtotals in order to make it more readable. But we also cover QR code. So basically, if you're if the customer of your customer want to pay with this application, he can just scan the QR code in order to have all the payment information. And because we have a financial discount over here, we also mention before what date they need to pay what amount in order to benefit from the discount. So talking about them, the end customer, talking about InBev, we can also grant them portal access. What do I mean with that? If I click on the preview button over here, I can see the portal view in Odoo, which I can basically grant to my customers, and they can connect to my database, to my environment, but only as a portal user, which gives some great benefits. They can pay online, they can download again all their invoices that are sent to them. And if I go back to all the invoices and bills, I can see an overview of me as InBev of all the different bills or sale orders if I have them available, and I can see the status, I can pay them over here, etc., etc. So basically they have an access to a portal view environment where they can see their own documents. But let's go back to Odoo, because it's also the perfect moment to talk a little bit about this chatter. I already mentioned it a few times before. I am here on a customer invoice, but the chatter will be everywhere in Odoo. It's very key because in the first place, it's an audit trail. I will be able to see who created this invoice at what moment, who changed something to some important information to the record itself, but also outgoing communication will be stored over here. The mail that I sent to InBev is over here, and if InBev will answer that mail, also the answer will be stored over here. So that basically, if you have a question about this invoice in a week, in a month, next year, if you have a financial audit or whatever, you don't have to look for hours anymore in your mailbox. No, you can easily dive into Odoo, go to the record itself, and everything you need to know about this invoice is simply available on the record itself. So not only outgoing information, but of course also internal information. If you want to communicate with your colleagues, or again, as an accountant with your customer, you can ping them. So for example, what I mean with ping, if you type Alt, you will see all the users of the database. You remember my customer Antoine? If I click on him, I can say, hey, Antoine, is this invoice okay, for example? And by logging that note, we log the note over here in the chatter as well. And we also have all kind of possible communication available. If I click on the customer itself, I can chat with him, I can video call with them, I can call him in the database itself. It's possible to communicate on every possible way with your end customer or with your colleagues. And last but not least, we can also set activities over here. If I click on the activity button, I can set an activity for myself, for example. I can set a due date, let's say for today, assigned to me. Okay, invoice, for example, I don't know. Let's imagine something, and schedule that. And that invoice will be scheduled over here. Which brings me to the little icons that you can see over here, because the chats that I have with colleagues are available here, but also all my activities are here. I can see that, for example, in my journal entries, I have one activity now available for today. If I click on there, I can see it's the invoice of InBev that we created together, which brings me here to the activity that I just created with you. So that's a possibility to assign activities to yourself or to colleagues in order to keep track of it also on the chatter itself. Okay, that said, let's go back to the dashboard, because I said that we're gonna start by creating invoices manually. Of course, there are different ways to create and to automate them. First of all, the OCR works as well, like for vendor bills works for customer invoices. If for any kind of a reason a customer cannot handle his invoicing with Odoo, but have all the PDF files of the different customer invoices, you can upload them over here. The OCR will recognize them the same way, or go by the document application. But if you have electronic formats, you can upload those as well. So for example, in Belgium we have the FFF format, but again we cover different formats. If you select multiple of them, you can just open them and load them in the database, and you will see that because it's an electronic format and the format is known by Odoo, there is not even an OCR necessary anymore, because it's purely a mapping of the correct field, and everything is immediately filled in without any cost, without any OCR. And last but not least, I'm going to show it over here. We can import all kind of records, everything basically that we create manually, we can import from Excel as well. Here we are working on customer invoices, but of course you can do the same with vendor bills, chart of accounts, journals, name it, contacts. I'm just going to show it over here, but know that basically everything that you create in Odoo, you can import by Excel as well. So click on the import button and upload your file. So of course I have an Excel file prepared here in English for the customer invoices. What you can see over here, these are actually the naming of my columns in Excel. If you apply the right naming, Odoo will immediately map it with the right field in Odoo itself. If you work with a consultant or with a Odoo partner, they can of course provide you with those templates. It's very easy, you just need to know it, and they will provide you with all templates that are possible to import. And as from here on, you can test if everything is fine. Okay, it might give some non-blocking errors, but if you import it, it will immediately create all the records. In this case, I have three invoices in there. If I filter on the draft ones, I can see that I created 3 of them. Basically, all the information over here you can put in Excel and easily import. So if you have the possibility to receive all the invoices of your customers in Excel, and you just need to accounting to update it, you don't need to use the OCR or to create them manually. Just import everything from Excel. It's very easy to use. That's it for the sales part, I think. Let's have a small recap. The first part that I wanted to point out here is definitely the fact that Odoo is a very collaborative tool. What I mean with that is that communication is everywhere in Odoo. It's key, and it's a great advantage, again, I believe, in the collaboration between the accounting firm and the customer, because they're working on the same environment, hand in hand. Communication is everywhere, and they can basically ask validation or ask tasks to customers because they work on the same environment. It's very easy to put, thanks to the chatter, communication everywhere internally, but also externally, like we've seen, to use it, for example, for their invoicing system. And secondly, by managing the accounting of your customers on Odoo, well, you provide them actually with a real management tool. Just by having the accounting on Odoo, they can benefit from a complete invoicing system. Creating invoices, giving portal access, but also making sure to be paid, creating SEPA files, etc., etc. Reminders, I have not shown it over here, but all single, let's say, possibility that is necessary is available just because you as an accountant are managing his accounting on Odoo. And we're going to see some additional advantages in the next flow as well, because the next flow is all about banks. We're going to see that definitely here. There's also some advantages for the end customer as well. Let's dive into the subject immediately and start with the bills that we created together in the beginning. Remember, we created 8 bills. Well, they are now flagged as being to paid. And from here on, well, I can filter a little bit about different KPIs. For example, if I want to filter all the ones that have a due date, I don't know, in 2022, or all the ones that have a due date in 2023, 2021, you can easily use the filters, but also group by, for example, all the fields that are available. If I want to group my bills, let's say I want to group them by partner, for example, I can apply and they are grouped now by partner, etc. So you can use those filters and those group bys a little bit everywhere in Odoo. It's very easy to use, but in this case, I want to pay all of them. So I just simply select all of them over here and register a payment. Now you can select the journal. I have a financial journal here, Belfius, so I'm going to pay with this journal. You can change it, of course, if necessary. And the payment method, I'm going to create a payment SEPA in order to have, let's say, a file that I can easily upload on my bank so that I don't have to do it manually anymore. So I'm going to create the payments. At this moment, there is already an accounting entry that happened. So I removed it from my payable account and I put it on a transfer account, a waiting account, let's say, payments in transfer, and they will automatically be matched, of course, if we're gonna link it with the bank statements. And the bills are currently in a stage in payment. They will be paid as from the moment that we sync them with the bank statement that we're gonna do right after. But because I have all my payments over here, well, I can see all those payments over here as well. I can define to create immediately my batch payment, my SEPA file. But of course, depending on company policy, they can just create the payments first and every Friday or every Monday, perhaps combine them all together in a batch file. I'm going to do it immediately right now, because as from here, if you select all the payments, you can create a batch payment with all those payments combined in one batch file. And because I defined the fact that it's a SEPA create transfer, when I validate these, I create immediately an XML, which is the SEPA standard, that your customer can use it in order to upload on his bank account. And because the SEPA is a standard file, all necessary information to execute the payments is already pre-filled in there. So if we go back to the bills, we can see that there is nothing unpaid anymore because they're now in a in-payment stage. So let's have a look at the banks now. First of all, Odoo permits to sync your banks in real time. If you click on the online synchronization button over here, depending on the country you're working on, you will see all the different banks that we can sync with. Now, the great advantage over there is that most bank syncs are completely free. If you click over here, you can see that depending on the bank, we have different providers we can sync with. Celtech and Enable Banking are free, for example. Ponto, you need to take a contract with Ponto in case you want to use Ponto to sync. In that case, it's €4 per bank account per month. But worldwide, we have more than 27,000 banks that we can sync with, and depending on the region, we have different providers that we use. But not only bank in Belgium, of course. If you click on worldwide, you can search for PayPal, for example, as a payment provider, and you can sync your PayPal accounts. Or you can select the other side of the globe, America, for example, and you will see all the banks in the US that you can sync. And once you set up the sync, basically every 4 hours, all the bank transactions will immediately be uploaded in Odoo. And you will see it over here based upon the number of items to be reconciled. Because of course, we import them in Odoo and we immediately post them. All bank transactions that are synced are immediately posted on a suspense account. The great advantage from there is that we already post them on the bank account itself. So if you open your balance sheet, at every time the bank account in your balance sheet is the updated balance from your home banking, and the counterpart will be the suspense account. And by reconciling the items, we're gonna switch the suspense account by the right counterpart. That's exactly what we're gonna do right now, by the way. If I click on reconcile the items, I can see at the left side all the different items sorry for that I need to reconcile. And at the right side, I can see how that accounting entry will be created. So I provided here with some common examples, let's say, that we can be used, and how let's say the reconciliation models that I put it in place here can help us to automate the reconciliation. So first of all, we have an incoming payment of 980 euros. And the first line that you can see over here is the bank transactions with a label. Thanks to the label, Odoo immediately matched it with an invoice. And the difference, because it's an invoice of 1,000 euro, the difference, he put it as an early payment discount. So how does that work? If I want to see the invoice I match with, I can immediately drill down to the invoice by clicking on here. Which I switch to the invoice, and indeed I can see, okay, there is a financial discount for this customer. So basically, if he pays before the 2nd of November, he can pay 980 euros. So I can see if that's the case. Yeah, indeed, he paid the 1st of November. So basically, we not only calculate the financial discount, we also make sure that based upon the payment date, the early discount might be applied, yes or no. So it's a very important feature, because if we paid too late, Odoo will make a partial payment in order to propose to write off the 20 euros in an early payment discount account. So this one is fine, let's validate it. The second one are interests for the second quarter. Well, there is nothing to reconcile over here. I have the possibility to use some predefined buttons over here. These are interests. Just by clicking on the button, I linked the right account interests to the button. Also this I can validate. Next, bank fees. Thanks to the label bank, Odoo automatically finds the right account. So there also, there is a reconciliation model in place that makes sure that based upon a word or a combination of words in the label, we propose the right counterpart. Also this one I can validate. Next one is an incoming payment with 3 different invoice references. Well, also there, a single payment can be linked automatically to 3 different invoices based upon the 3 different labels. And I can validate this one as well. Now here is an outgoing payment where I cannot find anything. So basically I can search over here if I can find something. So I can search for the amount, for example, 10,000. Okay. There is nothing. I cannot find anything of 10,000. If I want to search, for example, for 65, we can filter on the amount, but 10,000 we cannot find anything. So I'm going to flag this one as to check later. I don't want to keep it in all the different items to reconcile, but I'm going to track it later on. The next one is again an incoming payment for Coca-Cola. Also here, he found the reference. Based upon the reference, he linked the right invoice. But here, he put a difference in a payment difference. Not an early payment discount, but a payment difference. Because I have the possibility to work with tolerances. I can define based upon a percentage or an amount that the tolerance can be applied and put it in let's say, your P&L account, because the 64 in Belgium is a P&L account, in order to not track or follow up customers for a small amount. I don't want to track my customer and send reminders for 20 euro that he will never pay. So I just want to get rid of it, reconcile the full invoice, and the difference, put it in an expense account. So also this one I'm going to validate. The next one is my monthly payment of the reimbursement of the loan. Well, here is an interesting case, because thanks to the regex technologies that you can apply over here, you can search for amounts in the label. So basically here I extracted the amount of capital and the amount of interests and put it on two different accounts based upon what is in the label of your bank transaction. So also this one I can easily validate. And last but not least, we have our batch payment. If you have batch payments applied, like we did right before, you will find them over here. You have your batch. If you want to have a look again to be sure if it's the right batch, you can click on view here. We can see that it's the one that we created a few minutes ago. Okay, it's the one that I want to link. So you can easily click on batch, and I will immediately link it to all the different payments. Now, if you have differences, I have a huge difference here. You can see, well, I suppose it's going to be the latest payment of BPOS that didn't went through. So I can easily delete. And if we have a small difference, again, I can combine it, let's say, with the button over here as a payment difference to not apply the one cent somewhere. But when I will validate this one, because I removed one payment, Odoo will keep track of it, and it will immediately propose, okay, do you expect that this payment will still come later and maybe synced with the bank statements from tomorrow or after tomorrow, or do you believe that the payment didn't went through, so do you want to cancel? Well, I'm going to cancel it over here. It's very easy now because the invoice is open again and I can use it again for my next batch payment. So what about those 10K? Well, if you check them, you can see it immediately on the dashboard itself that you have items to be checked. So you can click later on them over here and jump back to all the ones that you need to check later. It's actually simply a filter that you can see over here. You can remove it and see all your bank transactions, which makes it possible to filter on the ones that are matched, not matched, to be checked, etc. And you can also change the view. For example, obtain a list view here in order to see all your different bank transactions. And from here on, you can search for basically all the information in a transaction. If I want to see all the transactions for Coca-Cola, I can easily type Coca-Cola, and I will see, based upon the filter of the partner, all the transactions linked to Coca-Cola. But I can also combine this with a group by, and for example, group all those transactions by month. Very fast and very easy. And I will see the rolling balance, the end balance, per month, so that I can see what was the ending balance at the end of each month, combined with all the different bank transactions. So that's it for our banks. Let's have a look and a recap of what we saw. First of all, very important, it's possible to integrate all your banks with Odoo. At least I say all your banks. We have already a lot of them. And because we have different parties we integrate with, every time they add some banks, they are immediately available in Odoo itself. And most of them are completely free. There is no extra cost. There is no setup fee to be paid. It's basically the end customer or the owner of the bank account that can easily connect to the database, sync, and every 4 hours we're gonna search for the transactions. And also here again, it's an example of providing added value to your customers. Because you work hand in hand, you can benefit from each other's work. Because the accountant has processed all the bills in Odoo, the entrepreneur can use all of that work in order to automate his payments. No need to manually type anymore all the payments. You will really reduce the manual work, the administrative work of the entrepreneur. No need to do all of that tasks in double anymore, because you're working on the same environment. And last but not least, the recognition is blazing fast. It's completely based upon rules. Every single line to be reconciled was proposed by a rule. And you can put all of them in automated as well, so that you don't even have to reconcile them anymore. You will not even be notified anymore. I proposed all of them here so that I can show how to validate. But if you're sure that the rule works every time, you can just flag the auto validate and it will work by itself. So it's based upon rules that you can define based upon the tolerance, etc. You have a powerful search engine behind, because you can basically search on every single information in the bank transaction itself. And my preferred feature, of course, I'm going to repeat that in the reporting part as well, is the drill down. Because from the same view, from the bank statement view itself, you can easily drill down to the invoice, to be sure if it's the right invoice, if a discount can be applied, or you can jump to the batch payment, to the payments, etc. You can drill down everywhere in Odoo without leaving the screen for once. So Next flow, and I can assure you it's the last flow. The last flow will be all about reporting. We saw multiple ways of putting information in Odoo. Let's have a look at what we can get out of there, but also how we can correct mistakes we made. So first of all, let's have a look at how we can correct our mistakes. My preferred report for that is definitely the journal report. If we open the journal report, you will see all the information you need on a specific transaction, on a specific journal. We're going to change the period, for example, to last year. So there are multiple transactions over here. If you want to verify, for example, the period of 2022, they're grouped by journal. If I click over here, I can see all the different accounting entries of the customer invoice journal over here. I have a lot of information, everything that I need to see to verify. If I want to correct, from here on, I can easily dive into the journal items linked to all of these transactions. So let's dive into a typical case. What if I used the wrong revenue account for all of these invoices? In Belgium localization, a 7 account is the revenue account. Well, let's imagine that for all of these entries, I made the wrong choice. They're already booked. Nothing more easy than just filter all the revenue accounts like this for multiple invoices, select all of them together, and by selecting them, they become editable in the view. So by clicking over here, I can select another account. So it was not accounting services, but it was re-invoiced expenses, for example. But by clicking over here, in one click, I basically adapted all the accounting transactions. And don't worry, if you click on the invoice itself, everything is tracked again in the chatter. So the audit trail will make sure that if your colleague adapted it, it will be notified over here. Let's go back. Not only the accounts can be adapted in batch, also the label and the tax codes. But my preferred is definitely the analytic accounting, because just by clicking over here, I can, for all of them, change the analytic distribution. Let's say that it was not for accounting, but for tax. It was not for the accounting finance, but for R&D. And the entity was not Antwerp, but Brussels. And you can even apply distribution in percentages. But just by selecting them and by clicking next to it, Odoo will in one click update all the analytic transactions behind all the accounting entries. So it's super powerful if you made mistakes. So that's it. Let's go back to the journal report. We talked about the customer invoices. Let's have a look at the vendor bills. Basically exactly the same. Also the link to the bill, etc. What is way more interesting is at the bottom you have a VAT overview, and from here on you can drill down the VAT audit, which will basically give you a view globalized by VAT tag. You can see that all the different tags combined here are linked to the grids on your statement. In Belgium, these are the VAT statement cases. In your localization, it might be different, but it's globalized by VAT case and then globalized by account, so that basically you can open, verify, okay, what was in this VAT grid, globalized by account. You have all the information, and even the image itself, if you click on there, you will see the image at the right side. So basically, if you're not sure, you want to verify in this audit report, you can dive into every single grid, see what was the base amount, what was the VAT amount, and what was the corresponding invoice. So let's go back. Last but not least, also the bank transactions, for example. From here on, you can click on the bank transactions, will bring you to the bank statement, the bank transactions linked to it. And these were the posting of our batch payment. From here on, I can click on the payment. And from the payment, I can click on the batch payment in order to see where it was linked. Or I can go back and see to what bill it was linked. So basically, you can drill down everywhere without leaving the screen for once and verify one by one, or apply your corrections to all at once. So it's very powerful to adapt your mistakes. Once you're done, let's talk a little bit about the closing. First of all, VAT return. the closing of the VAT return is linked to a miscellaneous entry. Why? Because we also make sure that we're gonna create the MISC entry in order to balance all the VAT accounts and to create one amount to be paid or recover from the VAT authorities. And it's linked over here. So if it's in red, it's already late. So the VAT return for February 2023 is indeed late. You will notify the VAT return of your country. This one is a Belgium one, but of course, if you're working in another country, it will be the one linked to your localization. Also here you can click on the amount if you want to see the detail, but if it's okay, you can click. In some localizations there is also a specific format like an XML here for Belgium. It depends on the localization, but if you're done, you can click on the closing entry, because basically the closing entry will calculate all amounts VAT from all your different accounts used for the period, and basically calculate one amount to be recovered, to be paid to the VAT government. You can see it over here. There is 448 euros to be recovered. And if you're okay with that, you can post the tax entry. We will close the VAT return and post in one click the centralization, so that you don't have to take care of it, and we take track of the VAT return in the chatter as well. So that's it about reporting. We have some other reports like the balance sheet. Again, here it's a Belgian balance sheet. We can switch between a generic balance sheet that is used for every single country based upon the type of accounts, or if there is a specific balance sheet available in your localization, you can use the one in your localization. You can change the period and change it to end of last financial year, for example. You can add comparisons, one or multiple periods to be compared over here. You can also filter all the accounting entries from one or multiple journals, and you can apply an analytic balance sheet or P&L as well. But I don't want any comparison, but what I want to see and what I want to show you is that also here drill downs are available everywhere. Let's scroll down a little bit. We can see the benefit of the year. Well, from here, from the balance sheet, when I click on there, I jump into my profit and loss account. And if here, for example, I want to see, okay, all my expenses, wow, those security expenses are quite high. From here on, I can click on the account and jump into the general ledger in order to have an overview of the detail. And if it's still not enough, you can see, by the way, our provision and our reverse that we created in the beginning of the webinar. Also from here on, I can even drill down to the journal entry, which is basically my vendor bill. So again, here, there is a drill down everywhere. I started in the balance sheet, jump to my profit and loss, jump to the general ledger, and jump to the latest record, which is the vendor bill. And we don't lose track of it. We can jump back to the general ledger, to the profit and loss, to the balance sheet. It's very easy to be used, and you don't have to change the screen for once. Now, two other reports that I wanted to show, maybe very quickly. Unrealized gain and losses. If you work with foreign currency and they're not realized yet at a specific date, you can apply different exchange rates as you defined in the configuration. But what is way more important is that you can calculate the adjustment entry. So for example, if for year-end purposes or monthly closing, you want to update all your foreign amounts in foreign currency, that are not realized yet, they're grouped by currency, grouped by account, and in one adjustment entry, you can immediately calculate the difference and update your balance sheet, and we're going to reverse it automatically the day after. In some countries, like Belgium, definitely, we also have the disallowed expenses. Going to filter on another period here. For example, in Belgium, it's quite common. We have a lot of disallowed expenses for corporate income tax, but it can be used in every single country. There are basically different categories that are linked to accounts. Depending on the localization you work on, of course, the categories are linked to other accounts. But the purpose is, of course, to define the expenses that are not deductible for the corporate income tax return, so that you have an overview of the total amount in your bookkeeping with the percentage that is not deductible, in order to fill it in very easily in your corporate tax return. And remember when I spoke about the car expenses before? Well, we also have the vehicle split over here. So if you link your expenses to vehicles, well, it's immediately linked to the right account, because every single account can single car, can have a different percentage of non-deductibility. It's basically linked over here in the fleet application. If you open all your different cars, you can see the rate, the disallowed expense rate over here. So if expenses are linked to a car, we take the percentage of the car instead of the category. So it's very useful, definitely for Belgium taxes, but also for other countries can be used, of course, and also to keep track, for example, on a vehicle, all the different bills linked to that vehicle. It can be very interesting information. Last, but definitely not least, one of my favorites is definitely the invoicing analysis. More used for the entrepreneur, but if we take a look at it, we can see the invoicing for a specific period. Of course, you can change the graphs, whatever you want. It's very, very nice to have. But my preference is definitely the pivot view. The pivot view is everywhere in Odoo, and we'll make sure that you can easily create pivot views based upon records in the database. How does that work? Let's start from scratch. I want an overview of my invoicing per month. So here, I'm going to select on a monthly basis. And on the other hand, I want to see them per customer. So I'm going to select the partner over here. So in 2 clicks, I have an overview of my invoicing per month per partner. I have the possibility to change the measures over here based upon an untaxed total or including tax. I'm going to leave it on the untaxed. So it gives you already a lot of great information. And if you want to see the detail of it, you just click on the amount and you will see how it's linked to. What makes it very special is that from here on, you can insert it in a spreadsheet. Just click on insert in spreadsheet and confirm. Well, what we created now is a spreadsheet, but it's an Odoo spreadsheet. There is no Microsoft Excel in there. There is no Google Sheets. It's completely built on Odoo spreadsheets, what is completely built in-house. The biggest ad records, all this information remains linked to the database. So let's have a small example. If you want to have a budget overview, for example, per customer, well, let's play a little bit with your habits of Excel, for example, and put a budget over here. And this column is budget with actuals. Well, let's do something not so interesting, let's say, but let's set one budget per customer. 1,000 euros, 2,000 euros. Use the habits of Excel, drill down, put a sum over here in order to have a total, for example, in order to have for every single customer over here a budget. And from here on, I'm going to say, well, budget with actuals is the budget minus what has been realized and what is really invoiced already, in order to keep track of where we are in terms of the budget. Also here, I can maybe select all of these, insert chart, for example. Of course, you can adapt a little bit in order to make it more beautiful, but you get my point, of course. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so we have a chart based upon the information over here. Now let's give this spreadsheet a name. So for example, invoicing. Okay, and now see how easy it is in order to follow up on my budget per customer. Remember this amount. For InBev, I have 1,001 euro invoiced. We did it together. So currently, I am €1 over budget. Now let's go back to my accounting and create a new invoice. Select InBev again. Now I don't need to create the customer anymore because we already created it. And just because I selected InBev, let's add a line. And you can see immediately the analytic distribution is applied because we saved it before. And let's create a huge invoice. A huge invoice for 1 million or something like that. Well, just by confirming the invoice, I basically updated my accounting. Now let's see what happens in our report. And therefore, we're going to jump into the document application because we have a specific workspace spreadsheet over here where all my invoicing documents are saved. And when I open it, let's see what happened. You can immediately see it as well and in the chart as in my pivot table. Because the data remains linked to all the data in the database, basically it updates in real time. And all my different formulas around it will update as well because it remains linked to the database. And if I want to know where this amount comes from, I can just click over here and see the records and sometimes you can have some kind of error. So you get my point. Normally, you don't have the error. You only see this in order to see where the information come from, so that you also keep track of the detail of it. And if we come back over here, we can even see that we can play with some advanced filters. Because if I click over here, we can add a relation. For example, we use products in the invoicing. Let's add a relation for a product. Select a related model, which is the product variant. And in 2 clicks, I created a dynamic filter on the product. So if I click over here, I can see the 2 products that I use in this database. Remember, when we did the invoicing, we used the accounting services or the reinvoiced expenses. Well, when I click over here, also here, the report will immediately adapt based upon the products used. And not only the pivot table will adapt, also the graph, etc. Everything will immediately adapt in real time, and you can create as many dynamic filters as you want. So that's said about spreadsheet, where you can create as many management reporting around all the figures in the database and keep it updated in real time. Last but not least, a lot of customers asked us the same reporting purposes they have. So that's why, as from Odoo 16, we completely updated our dashboard application. If you open it over here, it's completely new, and it will basically provide you out-of-the-box reporting with common KPIs that everybody wants to see. You can change the period, for example, over here. We only have the accounting application installed. If you have different application, you will receive dashboard reporting for all of them. And basically, it gives you useful information that you can see over here, track different KPIs, but also for the invoicing, you can see the invoicing with link again to the different invoices. You can immediately filter on all the ones in the Netherlands only, or apply different filters here on the product category, the salesperson, name it. And all of these come standard out of the box. There is no configuration necessary. Everybody receives all of them. And for accounting, last but not least, we also have the benchmarking in order to see and to follow up on some different KPIs on your database. And what is great about it is that it's also our spreadsheet engine that runs behind, but it's a standard out-of-the-box dashboard that works for everybody, that can be adapted, but it's used to be, let's say, common reporting purposes for everybody. So that's what I wanted to show in the demo. So let's go back last time to our slides. First of all, we saw the audit journals. We makes it very easy to drill down the specific records, verify them, update them in batch. So if you make mistakes, no worry. Very easy to adapt, not one by one, but all together. On the other hand, well, we saw Odoo spreadsheets, the power of it. It's fully integrated with all our different applications, updated in real time. So you can basically create all your management reporting around all the different applications. Don't need to export it to Excel anymore and have mistakes by taking it over. No, you just create it in Odoo itself, and it's updated continuously. And it's also collaborative and shareable. You can work together in there with multiple users, and if you want to send it by Excel, you can still download it in Excel, of course, to send outside of Odoo. And last but not least, we have our dashboards now. It's a first version. I believe that definitely we're going to add more and more of them based upon the feedback that we receive from our customers. What are interesting KPIs to be followed up? So to end up this webinar, I wanted to point out that for accountants, for external accountants, everything that we've seen today, actually the combination of the accounting application, the document application, fleet and dashboard is completely free for them for an unlimited amount of customers, so an unlimited amount of databases, and unlimited amount of users. All the features are also available on our mobile application. Basically everything that I did over here, you can do it on the mobile application as well. The only cost in there is the OCR credits. For the simple reason that we use Google Vision, we have to pay Google as well. So we need to, let's say, reinvoice the cost for Google. So that's the only, let's say, paid feature that you've seen over here. So to end with, if there are some external accountants with us today, you have the possibility to become an Odoo accountant. Why? What does it mean? You can subscribe on our website and become an Odoo accountant, because actually for the simple reason that this was the purpose that we started to collaborate with them. Our customers want to benefit from the all-in-one solution, and they were always asking for, don't you have some accountants that can work with Odoo? That's why we launched this part of the website where accountants can register and where customers can find accountants that can work with Odoo. So feel free to register and we get in touch. And last but not least, since a few months, we launched Odoo accounting smart classes because we know that let's say the perception of accounting in Odoo is different than traditional accounting softwares. So we wanted to onboard our accountants that work with Odoo. We started in Belgium. We already did it now. We do it end of the month in Luxembourg. It's a 2 days training. It's completely free for accountants. And we come more and more local as well. So as from the moment that we open the proposition for multiple countries, like I said in the very beginning, we will try to come locally in every country as well in order to organize those classes for accountants as well. So feel free to have a look at our odoo.com events page or to register as an accountant, and we will notify you about all upcoming trainings as well. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and we still have some time, of course, for our Q&A session. So stay with us. We will be back in a second. Welcome back, everybody, to the Q&A session. Thanks for asking all your questions. I hope we will have the time to answer all of them. So let's dive into it. I wanted to know if the QR code feature to receive payments on invoices will also be available in pro forma invoices. Steph, it's a very good question. Already the first question I cannot answer. I'm sorry for that. I'm not sure that it will be available on pro forma. At least if it's not available right now already, it will not be available because it's not something new that we added in the roadmap, in my opinion. So I would say if it's not available currently, then the answer is no. Also, maybe to add, it's important that the configuration is correctly set up. First of all, it's a feature that you need to activate in the configuration. But on the other hand, you also need to make sure that on the bank journal that you use, you have a correct IBAN account set, a correct BIC account set, and also on the invoice itself, on the supplier, let's say, that you want to pay with it. The same configuration must be set, otherwise the QR code will not be created because it's a SEPA QR code, I think, or for Switzerland it's another type. But anyway, we need all the information, of course, to make the payment. So first of all, if you need to check if the setup is available. If I duplicate a database, there will be real-time data there too, or will it be empty? Good question. Basically, if you duplicate a database, it's a completely duplicate. So if you put some accounting entries in there, it will be duplicated as well. That's why, like I mentioned in the beginning, if we use those templates, basically those databases are completely empty. There are no accounting data in there. We only focus on setup and configuration, so that basically there is nothing that cannot be duplicated. So it's very important to make sure that they are empty indeed, and there is no accounting data in there, because we duplicate everything. How can employees, users of the accounting firm see the databases of the accounting firm database dashboard? Yeah, thanks, Roberta. By the way, glad to see you over here, Roberta. Basically, it's there is nothing to know. First of all, if you invite them from here, so if you select multiple databases and you invite your users, we will immediately make sure that they are available in their dashboard. If you have a user in a specific Odoo database, but you cannot see it on the dashboard, you can just create a ticket at our support and ask to make the link between both of them so that they become available. They can do it. They're the only people at Odoo that can do it. So you need to create a support ticket, mention the different databases that you want the users to be synced with their dashboard over here. Also know there is a feature ongoing on our internal development that will make sure that for known accounting firms at Odoo, so these that are listed on our page, this sync will be automated, so that you don't have to create a ticket anymore. I know they're putting a lot of effort in there, so I believe it's gonna come soon. For the moment, if you don't see them, but make sure you have a user in your customer databases with the same email address, just create a support ticket. They will make sure that they become visible. There is no other way. In the future, this will be automated. If you're an accounting firm user and you have users in other databases, they will appear automatically. I don't have the accounting option in the workspace. I'm not sure. Hello, Marie, by the way. I'm not sure if you mean by accounting option. Sorry, the document application. If you mean those workspaces, no, it's possible because I adapted it myself. You need to go in the configuration and create your own workspaces. So I created the accounting workspace over here, and I defined the category and tags that I wanted. So basically, if you don't see it, it's normal because you need to configure it. Again, that's a reason why we set a template so that all of this configuration we do it with the accounting firm once, and they can duplicate it for all their customers. And the new button header, this is where I got stuck with other webinars. I'm sorry, Marie, I don't have the accounting option in my workspace. I'm not sure where the new button, which new button you mean. If you're still there, don't hesitate to be a little bit more specific and I'll be glad to answer, but there are a lot of places with a new button, so I'm not sure what you mean exactly. As a company, do you need to add one user license for your accountant? It's also a very good question. Today, the answer is yes. Tomorrow, it's also something that we will communicate maybe this year. I hope so, at least. We are thinking about, no, we're not only thinking about it. We already did it, but we're still sorting it out and how we should control it. Because, of course, we understand the question behind. If you are a known accounting firm, mentioned on our website, you don't need to work with us, especially if you work with a partner, it's fine as well. But if we know you're an Odoo accounting firm, let's say you're a real accounting firm, there is a possibility that the users of the accounting firm become free on our SaaS databases, not on Odoo SH, not on premise, never will be, but on SaaS databases, it will become free. It's actually already free for accountants because we want to make sure that every single user of the accounting firm can see the customers in his databases and can track the different operations they do. So yes, it's already done, but there are some conditions, and best would be to discuss it with your business advisor. It's not yet completely explained to all of them, but it's something, yes, that will come very soon. How do you control who connects to your databases from the accounting firm? Well, it's actually very simple. What you see over here, it's you will only be able to see all the different customers if you have a user with the same email address in those databases. So basically, it's nothing else than a link to a specific database, because the database I was working on, for example, is a different link. It's a specific link of the customer. If you don't have a user in there, you will not be able to connect. So that's the link between it. If your user did not, your customer, did not create a user for them, you will not be able to see, in any case, the customer in your dashboard. If you have an accounting firm yet, what are the best reasons that you can give to motivate or to move your accounting to Odoo? Well, I think it's a very good question, and it's important to understand that from Odoo's point of view, we definitely don't want to pretend that we're a tool for every single accounting firm. So it's actually a very crucial question, a good question, because I don't believe that Odoo is a solution yet for every single accounting firm. I think the logic in Odoo is completely different than a traditional accounting tool. All the ones that are listed on our platform, it's important to understand that we never contacted an accounting firm ourselves. Most of them come because they already have customers on Odoo and they want to get trained, and that way they discover that if we list them, well, they have new customers, so it's a benefit for them. But I never forced an accounting firm to switch to Odoo. I believe accounting firms have a lot of work already today. They don't have enough resources to cope with all those tasks, so they cannot invoice or to take the time to transfer their customers to Odoo. So it really needs to be a choice from the accounting firm itself. We will never push them to change. But to answer to your real question, I believe that an accounting firm should switch to Odoo if they want to be future-proof. I believe that in the near future, the perception of an accounting firm will completely change. In my logic, the perception will be completely different. Instead of having an accounting firm working on a tool separately and his customer having his own management system, I believe the future for an accounting firm will be for an accountant to become the internal accountant of every single customer, because they will be able to plug in on their management system. Everybody talks about real-time accounting and being a trusted advisor as an accountant. Well, I believe that the solution that we provide makes it possible to have real-time accounting because you work together on the same platform, which makes this real-time accounting available, and way more than only accounting figures. They will have access to inventory, to e-commerce, to everything to advise their customer way beyond accounting. And I believe that's the future for accountants. So if you ask me why they will change, I think everybody needs to ask themselves the question where they want to go in the near future. I believe it's a choice of every single accounting firm, but if they have the vision in mind that I explained over here, I think we're one of, let's say, a few possible tools that makes that possible. Taking into account that you will take the risk of a new partner and the cost related of moving your books to a new firm, that depends on the complexity of your business. I don't know if it's a question. If it's a question, I'm sorry, I did not understood. I am an accountant. How do my clients connect to their respective databases? I do not want my clients to see, of course, that's a logical reasoning, of course. Now, this view is only the view of the accounting firm. Every single customer will only see his own database, and basically they will never connect by this screen. They will actually immediately connect to the URL of their own database. And that's also one of the reasons why we want for an accounting firm that every single customer has his own database, in order to avoid that you give access to a wrong customer. So every single customer has his own database. They don't need to connect from here. They can immediately connect to their own database. Okay, thanks, Steph. Can I create a studio own field and via OCR import it here? No. Yes and no. Yes, actually yes. But it's you need to collaborate with us, because we need to explain you. It's a little bit technical, but as from the moment that you validate a bill, we get rid of all information we don't need. So basically, if you're a developer, you can get in touch with us. We can explain you at what exact moment you need to extract or search for information to store in that field, because at the moment that the bill is validated, we get rid of all the information in order to avoid having a database that is huge. So yes, it's possible, but I'm not sure that it's really interesting, to be honest. Sorry, Dries. I was from the opposite opinion. I don't think it's very important, but if for some you think so, feel free to share. I'm still looking for interesting feedback, but in practice, I don't know any customer that needs it, to be honest. Is the customer a portal user? No, the customer is a real user in his database. So basically, if you go to the database that I used in the settings, I can have the different users, because in the offer for an accounting firm, the one up free offer that we've seen over here, all the users are free. The customer is a real user. It only becomes paid when they go outside of the offer that I showed over here. If you grant him her portal access, yes, but yeah, there is no need to do it, I think. You should not, if you work as an accounting firm, hand in hand, like I mentioned during the presentation, with your customer, I would not grant them portal access, because then they cannot benefit of all the features in Odoo. The purpose actually is to work hand in hand to make sure that your customer can use Odoo as a management system. So I would not grant him portal access. Who should I contact to have more information about eventually moving accounting to Odoo? Like I mentioned before, on our website, you can register your accounting firm. So from the moment that you register over there, we get in touch with you from our team working with the accounting firms, where we can explain you how it works. When an analytic entry is created, how can a counterpart entry be triggered? Timesheet entries on projects, create entries on the employees. Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question, but indeed it's possible from timesheet, for example, that we only create an analytic entry without an accounting entry, and that's exactly what we want, Nathaniel. There is not a need for us to have an analytic entry linked to an accounting entry. An accounting entry can trigger an analytic entry, but the opposite is not necessary. Also, that way you can easily import bulk analytic entries without the need of linking it to your accounting entries. Roberta, how do you manage vendor bill approvals, marketing expense to be approved, blah, blah, blah. And is there a way to insert department budgets? Yes and no. I believe that currently the approval, the approval app, it's not really an app. Yes, you can do it with Odoo Studio, which goes outside of what you've seen over here. So it's not free anymore. You need to have a paid subscription. But again, I wouldn't do it only for vendor bill approvals, because I think it's something we can still make better personally. So yes, you can do it based upon different conditions, like a budget, but it's very complicated with what we have in standard today. I believe it's something that we can do better, and I hope it will come in the upcoming version. So I would definitely not do it, let's say today, as from an accounting point of view, because you will have a database that will become paid. You need a subscription, and I'm not sure that Odoo Studio approvals will cover your scope. How do we import accounting entries? Ledger, we used a different account and are changing for Odoo in the new. Not sure, Jimmy, if I understand your question. Anyway, if you want to know about importing accounting entries, I think it's best that you contact an Odoo partner to explain you how it works, or get in touch with Odoo in order to have a success pack for a consultant to help you and to explain you. As I showed you in the webinar, we can easily provide you with import templates and explain you how it works, but I believe it's a little bit too complicated to answer right now. How is it possible to assure that partner is correctly recognized once a statement is reconciled? Odoo creates the bank account for the partner, but maybe the payer is not always the partner. Yeah, it's true. Daniel, it's a good question. I think we're working on that, because indeed in some cases the bank account is indeed added automatically if you reconcile, so you will remember it later. Now for payments, there is not an issue, because you need to validate the bank account first before it can be used for outgoing payments. So that's not an issue. However, I believe you're right. It's something that it's already been asked for a few times, and I need to be honest, it went a little bit outside of my vision. I need to go back to the product owners, because I think you're right, and I'm not sure that we can cover it correctly today. So it's definitely something that we might adapt. So I will make sure your feedback is heard. When you make a bank to check, how do you remove the to check? Well, basically, like I showed over here, if you have the transaction that is flagged to check, or you reconcile it as a counterpart, or you set as checked in order to remove the to check, so it's gone again, and you have a simple transaction. So it's easy to click on the button, I believe. Okay, yes, it's true as well. We have also an expense app. But then let's say that it's used for internal employees. There is a validation on the total, but it's difficult to link to budget or whatever. There is no conditions except for the amount, I think. Yes, and that's true as well. If it's reconciled, the check is being removed automatically, but you can remove it like I showed before. Will the recording? Yes, thanks for answering. Can you attach the purchase order from the customer to can you attach a purchase order from the customer? No, not automatically. I'm not sure how that should work, because if you have a purchase order from a vendor that you sell to multiple customers, I'm not sure that's something that is so easy to cover, but the short answer is no. Please, can we have a link to revisit the videos? Yes, it will remain available. What about monthly VAT submission? Yes, I don't know if what country you are. If it's in the UK, I believe it's called. Not sure how it's called exactly, but yes, we covered the VAT submission. But it depends on what country, because, for example, in Belgium we don't have an automatic VAT submission button. In the countries where it is available, maybe we have it already, or it's interesting feedback to add to the localization. But I need to know what country you're talking about. If I create a own accounting report, for example, can I Can I able to save it and upload it to other databases? No, not that easy. And it's a little bit too technical for me, to be honest, but I think it's not so easy. But again, if you want to do such stuff, please get in touch with the business advisor at Odoo itself to be trained on it, or get in touch with the partner, because I believe it's already some advanced stuff. HMRC. That was what I was looking for. Jimmy, if you're in the UK, I think. I'm sorry, we're not actively in the UK for accounting firms yet, for the simple reason that I'm not sure that all different aspects of the UK localization are known by me or our team that are working for accounting firms. We're trying to analyze. We're working with some accounting firms already in the UK to see how far we are in localization and if it's sufficient for accounting firms. But that's the reason why I don't actively push already our let's say our roadshows to the UK, because I'm not sure if we have everything in Odoo standard. But the HMRC is something that I believe we have definitely in Odoo standard, so I would say yes. Oh, I lost track. No. Odoo accounting works very well. Thanks. Thank you. Indeed, we are working with some great accounting firms, big accounting firms also in Mexico. So we are adding maybe Mexico soon as well. So keep tuned. For the video, okay, just to confirm if this particular supplier bill as well. How to post? It's not in the video. How the supplier bill for inventory. It's not something that I cover in this video, but I would say that the short answer will be the OCR is capable of capturing purchase order as well, which will make the link with the inventory. Can Odoo create the fish? No, Peter. Sorry. Actually, I think the answer is yes. It's very new. I never tested it myself, so it's very. I don't dare to answer it directly, but I think I saw the development ongoing, already pushed. So I think the answer is I think it's yes, but I never tested it myself. Pour avoir le webinaire demain avec les mêmes... oui, on pourra. By the way, il y a aussi un webinaire de la même chose en français, donc n'hésitez pas de regarder celui en français si vous préférez. This is used by all... Yeah, yes, I totally agree. It's not to challenge that, but I'm not sure that we did it. But again, I think we did. This monthly says default reporting. It's completely default reporting. Yeah, thanks. Okay, Odoo My Life. Great, it's also my life. How can I define a reverse charge VAT tax, Jaromir? It's actually based upon the configuration. Normally, if you have a localization set, you don't have to adapt it in any way. This one is a localization for Belgium, so I'm sorry it's not in English, but let's say that we have a reverse charge here somewhere for... I might have one. Let's see, because I have also OSS available here. Yeah, this one, it's a reverse charge. So this is basically the setup of the reverse charge, which means that you have to have two lines, one for VAT to be recovered, one to VAT to be paid, linked, of course, to the correct tax grids in your tax report. So pay attention, this is already advanced configuration, and you might do a lot of wrong stuff over here. So again, it should be available standard in your localization. If not, please don't do it yourself, because you might have incorrect tax report. So always have a look at if you change things over here with a consultant or a partner working on your file. Can we make tax returns? Yes, I showed it, but again, it depends on your localization. I believe we have a general tax report, but if you want the one of your country, it might be available in Odoo or not. It depends on the country you're working on. If not, it might arrive in the future. Is there an Odoo 16 equivalent of the analytic reporting? No. The reason is simply because I think the report is not very useful. You can easily create your reporting yourself. So basically, if you go here to the analytic items, you have all the analytic entries, let's say globalized by analytic account. You can change it very easy over here. Group by, for example, by plan and then by account in order to see the values. But again, like I mentioned, my favorite is the pivot table. So basically, just use the pivot table to create your own analytic report. it will be way more user friendly than any report that we can create, I believe. So I would say play a little bit on the analytic items and create your report yourself. Put it in a spreadsheet, put some formulas on it. It will be way more easy than a standard report, because analytic accounting is management reporting. All the needs of every single person is different, so we will never please everybody, I think. So I believe it's better to create your own, thanks to the items and the pivot view. Okay, thanks. You're welcome, Steph. Thanks for. I'm happy that it was a great presentation. How to reconcile automatically a credit note with cash buy? The same in Odoo 16 credit notes reconciled with related invoice. And no, it's not really that way it works. Actually, it's the same way as with invoices. If you create the credit note from the invoice, it's immediately reconciled, indeed, because you create it based upon the invoice. If not, you create it out of the box or based upon an image. It's the same way as a vendor bill. How to create separate business unit in Odoo? It's a very good question. It's not possible in my opinion. For the same reason, please don't make the mistake to go for multi-company. With multi-company, I mean a lot of people are doing the mistake of having multi-company. I have 3 companies, for example, in the database here, because I do the same demo for Luxembourg and the Netherlands. So I have one database that I always use for my demos. Don't use the multi-company for different business units, because you need to use it where it's created for. And that means one legal entity, because otherwise you will have problems if you have accounting, because also if you have different business units, it's the same legal entity, so it's the same VAT return, it's the same balance sheet. It's not built for that, so I would definitely not use the multi-company. I do agree that that we could do something about business units. Today you need to cover it with analytic accounting and create, let's say, an analytic plan that is called business unit, and define somehow, let's say, manually or automatically the right business unit on every transaction. But please just don't make the mistake of going with the multi-company, because you will have too much problems after. We need to classify. Okay. I understand, of course, the need, but access right, yeah. No, that's absolutely not possible in Odoo standard. If you need it, you will need a development. But the need is common. We already heard it a few times, but sorry, it's not yet in Odoo standard. But I believe it would be something great that we could add. Can 2 different accounting companies from 2 different countries work in the same? Yes, of course. So like I showed over here, we have multi-company. All of these have another another chart of account. So for example, if I switch, here I have in Belgium, I have my chart of account for Belgium, which is Belgium localization, Belgium chart of account. If I switch to the one in Luxembourg now, you will see that the chart of account is the one from Luxembourg, and also the balance sheet is the one from Luxembourg, etc. So yes, absolutely, the multi-company is done especially for that. So two different countries. Yes. When do postings of Odoo ask date of reverse, is it possible to avoid? No. No, because I'm very. I would be happy to understand why, but maybe the purpose was not clear. The unrealized gain and losses is only for the ones that are not yet realized. So basically, at a certain time they will be realized, and the final let's say posting of the currency exchange gain or loss will be posted at that time. Basically, when an invoice is reconciled with a payment, for example, then it's realized. But the unrealized well, remains unrealized as long as it's not realized. So basically we always revert it because it's not final. You're welcome. Can we manage multiple branches? But branches, yes, because as long as you remain in the same, let's say, legal entity, this chart of account is common for all branches that you create in there. But it's a little bit same as the separate business unit. It's not very easy to define different business units yet. To have different localization, yes, there is. Yes, of course. Please do it because if you have a group of companies, one in Belgium, one in France, they all have their same. They all have a different localization, a different chart of account. If you will not use the chart of account of the localization itself, well, the reports might not be correct. So yes, it's actually not basically if it's recommended. It's actually it's a good question. So yes, it's recommended. Sorry. Do you have a complete pricing model for Odoo for fiduciaries? Yes, the answer is very easy. As long as you remain in what I showed over here, it's completely free and it will remain free forever. If some of the customers see an advantage of adding modules or apps, then indeed this customer need to take a subscription, but all the others remain free. Jimmy, thanks for answering. So in France, we don't have it yet, but I'm very happy you asked for the question. It is in the end stage of development, so I can promise you that it will be there. As always in R&D, I'm not going to put an end date on there. I can promise you it will come, and it's actually already in testing phase. So I hope Odoo 17 for the latest. If not, don't shoot me. But in any case, the answer is yes, it will definitely come. To calculate gross margin on a repair job, so invoice line, vendor premium, 2 lines. Sorry, Victor. Maybe I'm going to try to read it again. If it's an easy answer, I will give. Otherwise, I will skip. I'm sorry. To calculate gross margin on a repair job, but my journal items has the same product from invoice lines and vendor bill lines. It's one product. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I believe the question is not 100% free, but anyway, not 100% clear. But anyway, I think it's better for specific questions to check this out with a partner or a consultant in order to see how best practice in Odoo would be. Import replenish files in Odoo. Pamar, if you're talking about taking over historical data in Odoo, the easy answer, but the way not to go would be to import accounting entries. But I would really ask you to not do it, because I think it's a lot of work, a lot of consultancy for less added value. From our experience, all the accounting firms that wanted, or all, let's say, all businesses even, that wanted to import historical data from a few years, or they abandoned because it's very expensive. And when we import, well, the reconciliation is not there. I will avoid all the all unnecessary information, but it costs a lot of effort and a lot of money in that case as well for less added value. If we start a new accounting in Odoo, just create an opening balance. It's one miscellaneous accounting entry, and because you have the chatter everywhere, just export from your other accounting software everything in PDF or in Excel and attach it to it. For those very rare moments you need to check something from previous years, just dive into the opening balance. You have everything in Excel or in PDF there. It's of course, in my opinion, an overkill to develop, create a script for that and pay hours of consultancy for something that is very, very less used. We created in Belgium for one of our competitors an automatic import script. We took 2 years to develop it. Nobody uses it because for the simple reason that you also take all the garbage of the past with it, and people that change to Odoo take actually the moment to get rid of all the garbage and to start from scratch without all the unnecessary information from the past. So I would say please don't do it, but you can do it. And if you want to do it only for the year ongoing, of course, I understand. But in that case, what we do, for example, if you start in the middle of 2023, just put an opening balance in there, end 2022, and create one miscellaneous entry at the end of each month to update your accounts at month end, because that's what you want to see in your reporting. You want to maybe have an overview on month end, not on detailed transaction level, I believe. But of course, it's up to you. But I wouldn't do it. Thanks. I'm very happy that you appreciate it. You're welcome. If I have, for example, one bill and two invoices, Okay, yeah. Then yes, you can reconcile transactions. It's the only exception we give where you can reconcile transactions on different accounts is from account receivable and payable. So very quickly, maybe if you go in Odoo and you take, for example, the journal items. I don't know. You can group, for example, on payable and receivable. Of course, there is not a lot in there, but let's say that if you group over there, you have all transactions on payable and receivable accounts. Maybe group per partner, for example. Let's imagine, well, okay, this one is all receivable account, but here, if you have payable and receivable account mixed, you can reconcile between both, because it's the only moment that we allow reconciliation between both is customers and suppliers. So it's the type of the account that is important. Internal to import products, variants. Okay, then I think please take contact with your business advisor or partner. Multi-company with companies in different countries, is possible to work with different. Yes, of course. But in that case, if you want the accounting firms having access only to one of the different countries, you need to create one database per country. Otherwise, it's only one database. But again, there you have access level on the, let's say, on the company level as well. So you can invite a user of each one of the accounting firms and only grant them access to company A or B. So yes, the answer is yes. How to best advance once payment? How to pass advanced entry once payment complete? How just it? Sorry, the question is not 100% clear for me. But again, for best practices and specific cases, I think it's better to contact your partner or your consultant in order to obtain a right answer for your specific case. I think we're at the end of the Q&A session. So thank you very much, everybody, for being with us today, for your questions. I hope it was interesting. Don't hesitate to keep in touch if you have any other questions, and wishing you a great day. See you next time. Bye-bye.